but we deal with narcissism. Y'all deal with narcissism in an organization.
Oh, yes.
And so we also know that we have toxicity. We have those things within an organization. So
Yes.
we understand, and I understand. It's very important because you pointed out twice patience. So we understand, and I think we're in agreement here of how we can identify when somebody's patient when they're on their journey. So we can identify that.
Yeah.
But we also know, and you're a psychiatrist, so you have been through the studies of knowing narcissism, sociopathic narcissism. So
Just one correction for the record. Psychologist.
What did I say?
Psychologist. You said psychiatrist. Subtle difference.
Psychologist.
If we give medicine, we get in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the difference. I should know that. My husband's
okay.
a physician, so yeah. Edit. So how do you manage that? Because identify a narcissist,
yeah,
navigating it and knowing how to get that object out to begin healing the wound, like that's difficult. And I know my listeners and the HR folks would be like, how do you deal with a narcissistic leader? So let's just address it and figure out who's doing what and what is a practice out there that can help through that.
I'm so glad you brought this up. I think
a shot of tequila if you need.
I think first, just as for any role, and you know this better than we do, in your background, you have to have a roadmap for what's expected in a role, right? Just from that sort of foundational process piece. Like this is the expectations for this role. Mm-hmm. And what we are...
Sorry, puppies were barking.
Oh, that's
okay. They were mine.
No, puppies barking. My husband, I think he's getting ready to go to a class or something.
we actually were just on a call with our certified facilitators talking about this as they're working with their clients on these similar pieces, on this similar thing. If you have an organization and they are taking this seriously, and I think foundationally what we might kind of mean by that is that they are responsible for creating a psychologically safe environment. Mm-hmm. Then to me, that has to be in the job description. One. Mm-hmm. And we have behaviors on this. If people are interested, they can email us. But what does that look like then? How do I operationalize as a leader? What behaviors should I be demonstrating in order to be cultivating psychological safety? Mm-hmm. You know, to your point, that can sometimes be a difficult thing for people with varying pathologies, narcissism in particular. And secondary to that, a lot of organizations that we work with and our facilitators work with are making it more of a quote unquote requirement that you grow and develop. And in fact, your annual review, if you even have annual reviews, but your, whatever they're all doing these days. Yeah. But those conversations are, how have you grown? How have you developed? How are you growing? What are you going to do to grow and develop more this next quarter? If you're not demonstrating those things, right, then this probably isn't a good fit.
Yeah. How are you stepping outside your box?
Yeah. And, my big thing, and this is, again, going back to the narcissism piece, because this is difficult for narcissistic leaders to do. If you are a leader or any human who is going to be leading effectively, who is going to be creating psychological safety, you have to own your shit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a non-negotiable for me. And if you're not owning your impact, if you're not owning what you're putting into the culture, we got to have a conversation.
Owning what you're putting into the culture and being able to gauge that, like, how are you growing, developing? So if you're going to be here, moving with the ship, then you need to be doing your part.
Yeah, for me, I'll say this and toss it to Tim, but to me, and I know I'm not sitting in that HR seat, having to make these decisions to do with them, but if you're a leader, it's not negotiable.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sorry, like this isn't going to be accepted. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And what we've seen though is because a lot of organizations have not set themselves up for success in the succession planning. So therefore, a lot of times it's then, oh, well, Clinton, he's been here the longest. Put him in the new VP or leadership role without any leadership development. And that's a big thing we're seeing now with this new generation of leaders coming into the workforce.
I think, Tim, go ahead.
When I teach my psychological assessment class and teach people how to think about what we've historically called psychopathology, but that puts us in a box. But for this conversation, narcissism would be in that box. But our initial inclination is to look at what's wrong with that person.
Yeah.
And I think it's an easy place to get what is wrong with them. And particularly when there's people with narcissistic personality disorder and power, they have a lot of destructive impact. And so it's scary. And so that pull to ask what's wrong with them is really strong. But what's helpful is to actually look at it and say, what happened to them? What happened to them? And when we go there, and then we go back to the tenets, right? And back to our understanding of identity, and remind ourselves at the core of every single person with a heartbeat is their own grappling with their sense of significance and purpose, right? Their fragile sense of worthiness.
Yeah.
And then we think about narcissism that way. What happened to them to make that so fundamentally unbelievable that they're going to have to behave this way to try to get that met? It gets us to a place of compassion for them. And then we can ask the question, is this a helpful place for you to be? Is this a helpful role for you to be in, for that person to be in? I didn't mean you, Clinton. I'm not calling you a narcissist.
No.
I think.
Well, I don't know. You haven't assessed me.
I think the thing that I want to just point out there, because though is,
but no, I hope I'm not a narcissist. I don't. But even in that, what you said, like, I don't want to judge. I want to evaluate it, because you know, narcissism, if I understand correctly, there could be a stronger lack of empathy that person might, but at the same time, studies and assessments have shown people who with lower scores of empathy also have developed incredible sales records. Like, they're great at sales. So but it's at the same time, it's like you said, like, we have to have our own empathy and to think about what got them there, because again, the core goes back to they want to feel of worth. They want to belong just as I do.
Yeah. And I think I know what you're going to say, Casey. So, but from that place of empathy and what got them here, it can actually help us frame up where could they go, right? Where could they go? Because the role they're in with that much impact, if it's having that much negative impact, is not a good role for them or anybody else. Casey, you were going to say something.
Yeah, to me, it's all about the power. And I get real heated about this, actually, because there's two distinct pieces. Like, and even to what you were saying, Clinton, one of the things that we ignore primarily or not actively ignore, but maybe just don't think about when we are making those promotion and hiring decisions is how is this person going to handle having power? And to me, that's the most important question to ask when you're giving someone a leadership position. And if I don't care what their experiences is, where they're at, how much pathology they have or don't have, you don't get to harm people. And so if you can't handle having power, I don't care what the reason is, because you're using it to harm, whether it's intentionally or not, we shouldn't be giving you that power.